Here we are with our next dialogue with an iconic leader, a great friend, a mentor, a guide, someone I really look up to, and his name is Anand Kripalu. Uh, how this dialogue is going to look like, I will take about maybe 2 or 3 minutes to share my view of Anand. So Anand, there's multiple views. I'm sure people are experiencing him from different perspectives. I'll share the way I look at Anand every day. Then I'm going to ask Anand to unfold his life journey, his life story, and then we will get into the dialogue. So we already got some good questions from our audience, which we are going to bring up with Anand. But I'm going to encourage you that this is your dialogue. This is not truly actually meant for us. So make sure that you get the best out of it. Feel free to ask any questions you may have for Anand, and I can promise you will get some great insights from Anand. Use the dialog box so you can put don't wait for the questions to open, but keep putting your questions in the dialog box, and I will pull those up and maybe ask you to unmute and come on the screen and ask your questions. And then we will bring the conversation to the close and talk a little bit about our forthcoming events and dialogues. So that's how the session is planned. As I said, your session, leverage it, put the questions in, be part of it, raise your hand, and make it your own. So with that, maybe we can take the slide off, and I want to talk about my view of Anand. So Anand and I go back, I would say about 15 years. I met Anand for the first time, very distinctly remember Anand, it was in Istanbul. I was still joining the organization. There was some global meeting, and I was introduced as a new region HR person in a breakfast meeting by Pradeep Pant, who was our boss, by the way, Anand's and my boss. And there was this guy sitting among those 15 people around that breakfast table in Istanbul, uh, who was warm, very open, very engaging, and with a big laugh. So it's distinctly in my head. Anand's very loud laughter that morning, which kind of told me that he's not trying to be someone who is not. He's enjoying himself. He's there. He's the kind of person, as you see him, you will get exactly the same person in every interaction. And actually, that's how it turned out. So in Anand, out of all these 15 years I've been working and walking alongside Anand, I've found someone, if I have to define in 2 words, someone who is a man of wisdom and a man of character. He's very wise. He's got great insights. Now that he's on our advisory board, he's guiding and challenging us to get better every day. There's so much you can learn from him, but he also has a very deep character. He's somebody, I call it purity of character, someone you can walk up. He will not mince words. He's not a networker. I never saw him in forums, meetings. We were together when we used to work together. He would reach out because he truly cared for you. So he's a relationship builder, a connector, someone who is always looking out for you. So we are so privileged to have someone like Anand as a part of our lives, as a part of my life. Someone from the first day of LEH, 5 years back, when I dreamt of creating something which will give me a purpose to live, he played a role in that. He's been walking step by step, holding a hand, showing us the path, supporting us, challenging us, uh, just being there for us. So Anand means a lot to me, and I'm sure he means a lot to my passionate team who meets him regularly and gains from his wisdom. But more than that, I think his life story, which I know, but I'm not going to unfold, I will let Anand do that, is much more inspirational than what I just shared. So with that, I'm going to request Anand to come and share his life story and inspire all of us. Anand, over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Atul. Firstly, for inviting me for this session today. I'm deeply honored that you chose me, worthy of being one of your participants, but even more for the kind of introduction you just gave. I got to pinch myself sometimes to say that, hey, this is really me. Okay. So, so I'm going to use the next 15 minutes or so to share a bit of first my personal story. And I'm going to be as candid as I can, folks. And then my career story. And obviously, I'll give some of the highlights, right? I won't go into too much of depth, but this is more about the width of the journey that I've had. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen Steve Jobs' commencement speech at Stanford, but it's something I would highly recommend. He talks of three concepts there, and one of them is connecting the dots. And he says that it's really hard to connect the dots of your life and your career looking forward. Uh, but it's easy to do it looking back, because then you can see the kinds of things that have made you what you are. Okay. I've also come to realize that a lot of what you do at work and in life is based on the kind of person you are. And that's fundamentally based on your upbringing, right? And that's very, very unique and true to you. So I started life in a very, very happy, but a middle class home. Um, I clearly remember there never was money in the last week of the month. Right? This is government salaries, payday was on the first. By the end of the month, the money ran out. Where my mother actually had to start working when my brother and I both went to college. That middle class mentality of working hard, working with integrity and conscience, doing more with less, never wasting anything, always looking for a better deal, have actually shaped my thinking and behavior through my business career and honestly through my life. Um, I have to tell you that I was a very poor student in my early years in school. At that time, we would live in army colonies, okay? And invariably, uh, a well meaning auntie, so to speak, from the neighborhood would drop by for a cup of tea. And if they saw me, they would say, son, very directly, what's your rank in class? Right? I must have been in class 6 or 5 or 6 or 7 or something like that at that time. And I would say, quite honestly, auntie, 37th. And then, of course, they would be a little unsettled and say, okay, how many children are there in your class? And I would say, auntie, 38. And all this much to my mother's embarrassment, as you would understand. Okay. My dad then got transferred to an army base in a small town. So I had to move schools. And I was put into a school in a northern Indian city called Lucknow, where my uncle and grandmother lived. My uncle was this very senior, but very serious railway officer. One day he called me to his office, and his office was this enormous room where when you entered, you couldn't even see him. Okay, that was the size of his room. Um, and he said, Anand, if you work hard, one day you could be sitting on my chair. If you continue the way you're continuing, you could end up sitting there. And he was pointing to the stool outside his office where the peon sat. I think that message struck home. Okay. The change of school also meant that no one here knew that I was a bad student. I started, studying and trying really hard till I, towards the end of my schooling, actually topped my class. Till today, I can tell you this, folks. I've always believed that I'm a person of average intellect, but who tries very hard. That's the kind of person I am. It's only much later in life that I learned about my dad, by the way, who was 100 years and 4 months old, who grew up in abject poverty in a small village down South India, at times picking up twigs from the road to light the evening fire because they couldn't afford to buy anything. It was his determination and perseverance that got him commissioned as an officer in the Indian Army. And by the way, that obviously transformed the entire so-called Kripalu lineage, right? That descended from him. Yeah. In many ways, it's his spirit of never say never that got him to start running marathons after his 85th birthday. And he ran his last after he turned 91. And my mother, who was possibly the kindest and most fair person you would ever come across, she obviously wanted the best for her two sons and was willing to sacrifice anything for them. She was very clear that one must be an engineer and the other a doctor, as was the norm those days if you had, two kids. And guess what? That's what happened. I have no doubt that some of these influences from my parents have made me what I am today. And finally, one of the most important decisions you make in life is choosing who your life partner is. My wife, Sukanya, was a batchmate of mine, and she has been hugely instrumental in whatever I've achieved, certainly as far as my career is concerned, and I would say as far as my happiness is concerned as well. So, moving on to career, as you may have realized that I am the engineer, okay? Um, after which I ended up doing an MBA. Post my education, I have been working for over 4 decades now. And by the way, I'm still pretty busy and kind of love it. Okay. Most of my career has been in fast moving consumer goods, except the last few years. Of these over 4 decades, I've spent about a quarter in sales, a quarter in marketing, and the balance half in general management. 22 years in Unilever, 8 in Cadbury, which became Kraft and Mondelez later, and that's when I met Atul. 8 in Diageo, and 4 at EPL, which is a Blackstone portfolio company. I've been involved in many categories, from talcum powder to oral care to detergents to chocolates to alcohol, and then, of course, to packaging. After campus, I joined Ponds in sales. And for almost 7 years, I worked the dusty markets of India. On most days in a week, 35 calls a day, along with the frontline sales guys. I learned to have a lot of empathy for people out there who bring home the bacon. But I also learned how to lead and motivate people who are far more experienced than I was at that time, and often old enough to be my father. These years in sales set the foundation for a lot of how I lead. Therefore, I'm a great believer in the power of grassroots experience, right? And I tell a lot of kids who want to be CEO from day one, I said, hey, you have to dirty your nails, right? It doesn't happen that easily. By then, Unilever had acquired Ponds, which was Cheezero Pond. So I moved to marketing in Hindustan Lever, which is the Indian branch of Unilever in Mumbai. And then it did a series of jobs at various levels in sales and marketing, of which several were outside my comfort zone, like heading market research for a year. But ironically, those jobs outside my comfort zone were the ones where I possibly learned the most. I have done 4 general management stints, one about turning around a business, the second about accelerating a performing business, the third about transforming a business, and the fourth about restoring profitable growth post-COVID. Okay, and I'm just going to touch upon the highlights of these 4 general management experiences that I've had. The first was Unilever East Africa. So my first experience in general management was when I was asked to go as managing director for Unilever East Africa, based in Nairobi. By the way, at that time, all the stars in Unilever were sent to London or Singapore. I was sent to Africa, right? And many people asked me, hey, you're going to Africa? Why Africa? Now, this was a business also that had not grown for a decade, by the way. Yeah. Lost money every year. And I was told by the regional president, hey, Anand, this is our last attempt. Either you turn this around or we will shut it. What I soon realized when I landed up in Nairobi was that everyone was a victim in the leadership team. They had happily externalized every problem: the economy, the non compliant Indian competitors that they had, the regional Unilever office, right, who didn't let them do what they felt was the right thing to do in the market. Basically, it was all about, I'm okay, you are not okay. In fact, they couldn't tell me one thing that they felt was wrong with them. So I worked with the team to put together a simple ambition and strategy for the business, transplanting a lot of my learnings from India, like focusing on a few brands, making sure that every power brand had a low unit price pack because you had a very poor consumption audience in Africa, a comprehensive program to lower cost, and so on and so forth. The business started turning around, and obviously I'm simplifying and cutting to the chase, but the business started turning around. And at the end of the year, the business was delivering double digit growth and turned profitable in 1 year. And this sustained, I heard, for at least a decade after that, even though I chose to leave Unilever at that time. And I feel my legacy there was that people had started believing in themselves and were therefore now delivering consistently thereafter. And that was the biggest legacy for me. So after that brief 15-month stint in East Africa, I came back to India, to Mumbai, to join Cadbury, right? And a few Cadbury colleagues here as well, right? So they will point out if I'm not saying anything that is absolutely authentic and true. And I came back as the managing director. And you know what? At that time, everyone believed that the 9 or 10% historic growth that they were delivering was great. Why? Cadbury was a mature brand in a mature category. After all, it had been around for 60 years. At the time I joined, the economy here was opening up. I felt that there was a party going on out there, but we were not invited to that party. Okay? I felt that the Cadbury brand in the mind was much bigger than the revenue that we were generating on the ground, and therefore it had far more potential. I felt we should grow much faster, but most others did not. So I partnered with a few people who did believe that we could grow faster and put together an ambition and strategy to grow at 20%, more than double the historic growth rate for the next 5 years. We said, so 20% till 2010. Most felt we were stupid. We had never grown by that rate, so why would it happen now? Over 8 years, that business delivered a CAGR, compounded growth, of almost 25% in top line and 25% in bottom line. And you know what? If I had to do this again, I would have aimed for 30% growth because we ran out of capacity and the organization started creaking because we just couldn't support that growth. The growth was ahead of the capability that we had, right? But who was to know? And then in 2013, I moved to Diageo, which is the world's largest premium spirits company. Um, Diageo at that time had bought a company in India called United Spirits, right, which was actually by volume the largest spirits company in the world. It was a listed company with a turnover of around $2 billion, and we used to pay taxes of nearly $5 billion a year. okay? Because that's the rate of taxation in alcohol. I was approached to lead the integrated United Spirits and Diageo businesses in India. And, honestly, I got cold feet at first. Did I want to join the alcobev industry in India? It had a tainted reputation about business not being done the right way, about unethical practices. It was a category, honestly, that people liked to crib about and curse during the day, but come home to enjoy in the evening. Right? That was the nature of the category. But on the positive side, there was Diageo. So I took the challenge, and the challenge was far, far bigger than anything I could have expected because there were a host of legacy issues that emerged. And while dealing with that, we also started setting out our plan for the business. We put our might behind a few of the 150 brands that the company owned. We changed the sales organization from push to pull. We halved our factories from 94 to under 50. We invested in ethical marketing of alcohol and transformed the organization in terms of structure, ways of working, and culture, halving the number of white collar employees and enhancing the focus on inclusion and diversity. When I joined, there wasn't a single woman in our leadership team. When I stepped off, 4 of the 8 in the leadership were women, including my successor in that role. And a third of the top 50 were women. And lastly, and most importantly, I think we changed the way business is done forever in the alcobev industry in India. And all this happened while transforming the growth and profitability of the business. And finally, I put up my hands in Diageo and I said, listen, I've done this enough. I want to retire. And I left Diageo to retire. But then, as I was putting my plans together, one of my old bosses came in the way and said, hey, Anand, I want you to come and run this global packaging company, which is controlled by Blackstone. I said, hey, I have never done packaging in my life. I have never done B2B business in my life. I've only done B2C. I've never run a global company. I've run countries, right? Or at best a region. All this is outside my comfort zone. But as you might have noticed from this narrative, I'm a bit of a sucker for taking on challenges, right? I finally signed up and took this on in August of 2021, towards the end of COVID. And from the day I joined, I realized that there was a global supply chain crisis underway. Right? And the main raw material for packaging, tubes.
Yes.
The main input materials are polymers. Okay.
Excuse me, can I request to put your mics on mute as Anand is talking? Thank you. Yes, Anand, please.
Yeah. There was this global supply chain crisis. There was availability challenge and prices escalated higher than ever happened in history. And that meant you needed discontinuous actions on pricing and costs like we had never taken before. It required driving change of a legacy culture, of a founder's culture that was built over 40 years. They were outstanding at what they had achieved, but not great at dealing with VUCA and rapid change. So I just stepped off this role a few months ago with the business delivering strong growth and completely restored profitability. So today, I'm not doing a full-time job anymore, folks, but I'm an operating partner for a private equity firm where I give part of my time, and then I'm on a few boards. Okay, so that's really my story and my journey, Atul. Back to you.
Amazing, Anand, amazing. While I have had the opportunity of knowing a few pieces of it, I must admit there's so much I heard in last 15 minutes, which is just inspirational. One thing I want to call out, Anand, I think your dad is joining this conversation, and I'm so grateful to him
Oh,
for,
yes.
yes, to give us this gift which is called Anand
Oh,
Kripalu.
wow.
So thank you, sir. Thank you so much. If you hear me, we are deeply grateful for having you. I think this makes it just this fact makes it the best dialogue we have ever had at Eliot. So my deepest gratitude on behalf of my team. Now,
Wow.
um,
I didn't know that. He'll be the first 100-year-old in your audience for sure.
God, God. You know, I'm just playing in my mind that auntie who asked you, "Are you 37 out of 38?" She should see where you are today and the lives and people you're inspiring around you. So there are already some great questions coming up from the audience. While I had my own list of questions, but I think I'll prefer the audience questions over my own set of questions. So I think first one I will take is from Anant and Soumya because I see there is a linkage in the theme. And the question is about cultural transformation. So Soumya's question is a little more rounded, which says that the biggest challenge in your journey is to bring a cultural or a mindset transformation. What are the top two or three actions which will help you to change mindsets? And then Anand's question is linked to that, which is mindset change in Africa. When you were there specifically, what were the steps which you took? Two or three very specific steps, Anand, which would help shift or change the mindsets.
Okay, I'll start with the Africa piece quickly and then talk a bit more about the larger question of culture. And by the way, there's no perfect science on culture, and it isn't an easy question to answer either, because culture is an amorphous kind of thing, right? But Africa specifically, and I must tell you this, folks, I did not know that when I landed in Africa, that Indians are not liked in East Africa. And the question in the leadership team was, why do we need an Indian to come here and tell us what to do? That's the first barrier I had to overcome. Now, what I did is I traveled probably more than any local for the first 3 months of my stint there. And I knew what was happening on the ground. I went to some of the most dangerous places in Nairobi, right, where people get shot every day, sat with consumers who were earning less than $2 a day to understand what was driving them. And then when I came back, I put my learnings into a workshop with the leadership team and then co created the solutions. It wasn't my ambition or strategy. Now, the important thing is that everybody wants to do better, right? That's part of the human spirit. Nobody wants to do badly themselves. So, if you are able to make them participate and co create something that makes sense to them, right? Obvious things
Yeah.
that make sense to them, then they are going to join you. And then you know what happens? The first sign of success, everybody wants to be part of the team. Everybody wants to be on that journey. Nobody wants to be left out, right? And that's how I went about the Africa journey, to try and carry that team and transform them and make them believe that they were good enough, right, to find the answers, right? It wasn't me having come and imposed something on them. On
So,
culture, I just want to say this, okay? I have learned empirically, a lot of people have talked of, culture eats strategy for breakfast, management gurus. But I have empirically seen personally the power of culture in a company. And I'm a firm believer that culture drives performance, not the other way around. I mean, Cadbury had a huge infestation crisis in 2003, 2004, where there were worms coming out of Cadbury chocolate, or alleged worms coming out.
yeah.
Nobody jumped ship. Everyone, and this is before my time, by the way, so I take no credit for that. But people said, this is my company, right? I'm not going to jump ship. Our competitors were trying to poach our people. There's also a fabulous HBS case study about the night of 26/11, about the Taj hotels when the terrorists came in Mumbai. The Taj employees are not the highest paid in the hotel industry, but every one of them was willing to take a bullet for their guests that night and save them. Service before self. What does that for you? Culture. I also believe that mediocre performance is culture and outstanding performance is culture. I'll tell you, once we started the cultural, the acceleration of performance in Cadbury, do you think anybody would come and present their business plan for next year saying, here's my plan to grow at 10% next year, when the whole company is growing at 20? Suddenly, everyone started believing 10 is not good enough. And if I'm not less than 20, if I'm less than 20, then I'm less than the average of the company. Now, that is culture. And suddenly, one reinforces the next. And suddenly you become a high performing company where everyone aims high. And it is not nice to aim low, because then you're a loser relatively to the rest of the people. That is culture, right? Now, of course, you need strategy and other things, but culture is the glue that sustains this kind of performance and is the only source of true competitive advantage which your competitors can't copy. They can copy your products, they can steal your people, but they cannot copy your culture.
Well said. Well said. Amazing, Anand. Amazing responses, and I hope Anant and Soumya, you got some great insights from Anand. Next is Shalini, who's talking about the power of grassroots experience. Your Bonds experience, being on the road, sweating it out. I'll actually let Shalini come off mute and ask her question. Shalini, if you hear me.
Yeah, sure, Atul. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Very inspiring journey, sir. Uh, Coming from FMCG background, this struck a chord when you said about the importance of what you learn from the ground. I mean, when you go with that field executive, what you learn as a manager is also can't be replaced. But right now, you see the shifts happening. When I say shifts, AI shift, which sometimes is not just your guiding with the Salesforce automation, but agentic call doing dealer calls, right? We're seeing shifts happening in that space. And I think last session was also around AI. So this just kind of came into my mind is what's your thought on that? The human touch, because it's about leadership with humanity. That's also going away. The engagement with humanity is also going away. What's your read on it? What do you think people can do so that there is a balance?
So thank you, Shalini. First of all, I am no expert on AI, or more importantly, how AI is going to evolve and how it's going to impact our lives and our business, right? Um, the people with real wisdom in this area also don't know exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to play out. I'll tell you my belief. My belief is that ultimately it is the man or woman combination with technology that is ultimately going to win. There is no model of no human. It's like Formula One racing. It's a man machine victory. You might have the best driver in the world. If the machine doesn't stand up, then you won't win, or vice versa. Okay. So it is the man woman combination that I think makes the difference. It's like we use computers today. We haven't got eliminated. Our jobs, our roles, and how we spend our time has pivoted. Right? By the way, I grew up at a time when calculators were not there. I did engineering with a slide rule. You guys will think I'm a dinosaur because you might never have heard of what a slide rule is. And the first calculator I saw was my second term in engineering. Okay. So, but all this technology has come. Has the importance of humanity, the importance of having a personal touch gone down? I mean, I don't think so. So, how you spend your time, how you deploy your time, right? It's just different. Earlier, I was sitting and manually calculating a whole lot of stuff. Now I can actually use that time to think or to connect with people. Right? But I am not envisaging a world where it becomes completely inanimate, right? Where bots will do your sales calls. Because ultimately, I don't know if you're going to have a bot sitting on the shopkeeper side as well. It's a bot talking to a bot. I don't know, right? But I don't think it's going to be that way, right? At least I can't see it, right? So all I think is what we do with our time and how we deploy it has to change. I think it's important to embrace technology and not resist it. You have to, right? And sometimes be the first to embrace it. But make 1 plus 1 equal to 11. not make 1 plus 1 equal to 1.5.
Well said. Well said. Thanks, Anand. Thanks, Shalini. Great question. Next, I'm going to come to Ajay Dang. Ajay is asking Anand about mature brands and mature category and how do you really drive growth in that spaces. Ajay, you want to come off mute and ask your question? Ajay, if you're there. Okay, so maybe he's in the transit. Next, then I'm going to move
Can you
to.
hear me?
Yes, yes, Ajay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
okay.
Anand,
Please go.
sorry. Great, inspiring story. And I just wanted to check, and I've followed the your journey, Cadbury's journey as a inspiration per se. Just wanted your thoughts on. You said you thought people had mature brand and mature category, transforming that to a reset. Any of those learnings that we can take off of people a certain age who've had reasonable careers and reasonable success to reset our own thinking on our own growth and our own path?
So, I mean, I won't answer this more generally, but specifically, I can tell you that, one line I picked up saying there are no mature brands, only mature managers. Okay. Now, I think, yes, Cadbury was there for 60 years. It's been grown at 9-10% over that period. But the reality is, it's about how you look at the opportunity for growth. Okay. And the fact is, and I'll speak for India, but generally true of the world, a lot of indulgent products go down your palate. Okay. The share of chocolate is really small. It's like the Coke share of throat concept, right? Here it's the share of, to use an Indian word, meetha or sweet. Now, if chocolate is a small part of the total sweets you're consuming, you have an opportunity to substitute other within quote sweets or sweet occasions with chocolate. Hence the line kuch meetha ho jaye, which means let's have something sweet. Hence a lot of the advertising that was about showing occasions when something happy had happened and you would normally distribute sweets in India to celebrate happiness or put something sweet in your mouth before you're going to do something important, and we were substituting that with chocolate. Suddenly the category started exploding, and we realized that our biggest competition in chocolate was not chocolate, it was non-consumption. So how do you compete with non-consumption as your primary competitor? And what lessons does that give you of how to change the growth trajectory of your brand or your business? And I think that basic thinking of reframing a category and sourcing business from so-called competitive opportunities out there is really the answer I would think, in most cases.
Thanks so much, Anand.
Thanks, Ajay. Great question, Anand. What a response, and so very well said, by the way. We put sometimes limitations in our own mind. The competition is not the product we compete with, but the opportunity which is out there. Let me go to Hari next. Hari, please come off mute and ask your question.
Hi, Anand. Nice to see you for a long time. So my question is, see, in all the roles where you have made this pivotal change, I think the critical theme is the team. So see the vision, like as you said, they are aligned to think in a particular way. Now making them think to a new way, your vision, your perspective, make them believe that and move that. It's not easy. So that's one of the very difficult things which has been pivotal in all your career, the roles what you have done. Of course, I've seen this in EPL as well. So how do you do that? Spotting the right talent and aligning the team to your vision, which is very difficult because once it is aligned, I'm sure things will start moving. But how that alignment happens?
So not easy, as you know, Hari. It was never easy at EPL either, right? See, there are two approaches, huh? And I've been challenged by some people in Unilever, and I think once even by Atul. See, one is you can change the people and start from there. I have always found it hard to take the hard call, for whatever be the reason. right? I tend to give people a lot more opportunities, a lot more chance to make amends, or a lot more rope to turn around. So I try and do it as far as possible with the existing team that's there. Now, that's a strength and a liability. The strength is they know the business inside out. The liability is that fresh thinking is not easy, right? And maybe the right balance is to change a few key pivotal people, maybe. But by and large, I've done it without making radical change, or when there was a natural opportunity for change. Somebody's retiring or leaving, then you bring in somebody who you believe is more like-minded in the kind of change agenda that you're trying to create. Okay. But my model, Hari, takes a lot more intense effort. You have to overcome resistance. You have to keep convincing people, right? You have to carry them in that journey. But you also have the strength of the legacy knowledge, which, let's say, in a company like EPL, or in any company, there is a depth of knowledge of people who've been around. It is very easy to change them, but it is so hard to substitute that knowledge overnight. Okay, so the question is, how do you harness that, right? And yet instill the desire to change. And part of it is about creating the case for change, right? And I think a lot of this is driven by, it is the prerogative of every new leader to reset the ambition and the hopes and aspirations of a company. It is the most fundamental reason why a new leader comes. If the new leader is going to continue to do what was being done, then why change anything at all? So it is the responsibility of a new leader to reset the ambition. Now, the moment you're able to reset that ambition and carry people in that ambition, then that ambition will force you to think differently, because what you did before will not get you to this new ambition. And that actually creates a case for change. Okay. But listen, we know that the process of changing mindsets, carrying people, is a journey that you have to persist and pursue. Right? And there's no simple input output. Huh? But I'll tell you one thing, I'm quite persistent and resilient, right? I'm willing to take knocks, but I'll keep at it till it happens. Okay. And that's the way I operate.
Thanks, Anand.
Thanks, Hari. Great question, Anand. And so much I can relate to what you just said about persistence and just staying on track and doing the right thing. Next, I'm going to ask Suraj. Suraj, it's so nice to see you on the dialogue first. And please come off mute and ask your question to Anand.
Sure. Thank you, Atul. Am I audible? Just a quick check. Perfect. Atul, first of all, thank you for this session. And I really didn't think I could make it, but happy I am here today. And Anand, hope you remember me. I am from Cadbury Business Services, the building behind Cadbury House, where I operated. We used to look forward to the town halls every month. So it is still very fresh in my mind. Just a question, looking at your illustrious career spanning across multiple decades, what is the leadership belief that once you believed early in your career was versus what you have revised as you progressed in your career?
Well, I know what leadership belief, but I'll tell you one thing that I have learned. In probably the first 10 years of my career, I used to believe that people are good or bad or average. I have learned that people can really change and develop if you create that emotional ownership from the individual, and you as a mentor also own that process emotionally. People can develop and improve. Okay. Gross negatives can be smoothened out. Now, maybe a leopard won't change its spots, but you can smoothen out gross negatives. You can accelerate positive spikes, right? Everybody has some strength and everybody has some limitation, okay? And that's a universal truth. But you can actually do that. And I've become a much bigger believer in coaching, in mentorship, in getting people to a better place, getting people who are average. And by the way, as I told you, I was a below average student myself. Yeah. Okay, I've been there, right? And it's just, I just felt I could be better maybe, right? Or there was that clarion call to say, wake up, guy, you can do better, right? So I think that has been probably my biggest realization, that people can develop and grow, and you have to help them. And your biggest legacy, by the way, is your investment in your people, because they will only remember once you're gone how you touched them and how you impacted them and how you helped them. Nobody will remember the number, percentage growth. Nobody will remember. That's all they'll remember. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Anand.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Anand. Next, I'm going to ask Bhaskar. Bhaskar, part of our team. Bhaskar, if you can come off mute
Yeah.
and your question.
Hi, Anand. I have known of you as a successful and highly respected Indian manager, and for last few years with LEH as a priceless advisor. My question to you is, over the last 4 decades, as you started off by saying your grassroots job in ponds, you started learning things on the field. My question is, through a professional journey, it's a mix of learning and giving back, as indeed it happened in Diageo and EPL by transforming the growth story and changing cultures, etc. What would be your advice to somebody who is starting off his or her career on how to look at it? Because an individual starting off always finds it an issue of whether I should have the humility to learn or kind of I know everything. So, what would be your advice?
Well, I'll tell you my biggest learning on learning, okay, has been sometimes we all feel we know exactly what's good for us in our careers. And very often, that's because we just want to play in our comfort zone on what we're comfortable with. We don't want to be found out. I have found my biggest learnings have actually come when I've done jobs outside my comfort zone. And most often than not, I was kicked into those jobs which I'd never wanted to do. Okay. And I've come out of those jobs saying, my God, okay, that job transformed me, because, just sequentially bigger jobs, the learning is also sequential. But when you do jobs completely outside of that vertical, the learning is discontinuous. So the advice would be, and particularly early in your career, the risks are lower. Try and do stuff that is outside of the trodden path. Do stuff that you don't know, and you will be surprised at how much you learn. And you will build that bit of that learning muscle and learning agility that comes from that. The second thing I think is that there is nobody in the world, even the most successful person, who has not had failures. I would say you have to be vulnerable. When you're vulnerable, people come to help you. You end up learning because you are then open to other people's inputs, other people's ideas. If you try and be Superman or Superwoman, you'll never learn. If you think, I know it all. Okay. So that's just the advice for people is, take jobs outside your comfort zone when you get it, embrace it, and try and make the most of it.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bhaskar. Great question. Thanks, Anand. Again, Vikas, I have the next question from you. Are you online? Can you come off mute and ask your question?
Oh, thanks, Atul. Thank you, Anand, for I think your every words has a lot of wisdom. I mean, this is my first session here, so I'll take some time to soak in whatever is being said here. But I think one of the in your life story, one of the point which you mentioned is that you joined a school or college, and before that you were a below average student, and then after that you keep topping it up. I'm just trying to relate to mine and some of my other peers' career journey, where they are, if they are stuck, uh, uh, thinking a lot about, yes, it's not been a success in the past. So how that transition can happen so that they start trusting themselves, and then positively transform that into a more successful. So if you have something to advise on such people.
Sure. I'll just make 2 points here. The first is, intellect, I would say, is, probably a little bit more that, you just get when you're born. Right? What you do with that intellect is in your hands. It's like playing a game of cards. Right? I mean, the hand you're dealt is the hand you're dealt. How you play that hand is in your control. So one is to focus in your circle of control and what's in your control and play the best hand ever that you could have played with that hand. Okay, so that's one of the things that I would say is really, really important uh, uh, to basically focus on. Okay, the second thing is I'm an optimist. I'm generally positive even in the worst situation. And I'll tell you, even in my darkest moments, what I've discovered with hindsight is when one door shuts, some other door opens. And that happens when you are just positive. Okay. And it's happened to me early in my career, major setbacks. When I was sent to Africa, for instance, you think I wanted to go? No. They said, there's no job for you in Hindustan Lever. Go. It was the best thing that happened to me in my life. Best thing. Because I would never have got the Cadbury job as a managing director if I had not done a general management stint there before that. Okay. So, one door shuts, you have to just keep the faith. And sometimes it takes longer. It may take 3 months, it may take 6 months. But if you try hard, right, you're doing the best with what you have, doors will open, right? And then you have to seize the opportunity. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vikas. Thanks, Anand. I mean, this is something which we can keep going for hours. We have so many questions coming up, but I know that we are on time. So, Anand, I want to sum it up by a quote which was put up here. This is your quote, put up here by Ashish Pishrodi, who's a mutual friend. And Ashish is saying for you, quoting you, Anand, that I'm a product of belief some of my managers had in me. And I've heard you say that, by the way, a few times. And I think all of us, when we look back, we are standing on the shoulders of those giants who chose, you talked about mentoring, chose to hold our hands, be there for us, guide us, show us the light, show us the path, encouraged us throughout our journeys to bring us to where we are today. To Bhaskar's comment of paying forward, how do we really enable others? And I think if I have to sum up your life story is about making a life full of meaning, but also using or leveraging what you learned to inspire so many thousands of people around you by being who you are and not compromising in your beliefs and in your values. So I'm so grateful, Anand, for having you with us. It's always inspirational to have even 5 minutes of conversation. You is so uplifting. And we were lucky and almost spoiled to have 1 hour of this dialogue with you. So thank you so much and so appreciate. Thanks to everyone, all of you who joined, made time for this dialogue. You continue to encourage us and inspire us to bring more Anands on our conversations and unfold their stories. So keep signing up, and we'll continue to bring more guests. Thanks so much, Anand. Maybe 1 second, I want to bring up our next guest. We will have our next dialogue in the month of August. And our next trendsetter is Roger Lopez. He'll be joining us from Switzerland. Another amazing story, we will be unfolding for you. So do sign up when you see the announcement. So appreciate, Anand. Thanks a lot. And please extend my heartfelt gratitude to your dad. Thank him for joining. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.